Kanchana is going to be presenting on delivering digital experiences and why the right platform is key. So give a warm welcome to Kanchana Wickremasinghe.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah. Thanks. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It was a great speak. Thanks again as well to the previous speaker. I don't have a great questions to start with, but I do have some housekeeping logistics that in the event that if there is ever a fire, please commit and push before you run. With that, today I'll be talking to you about digital experience and why selecting the right platform is the key. So firstly, I would like to look at the market outlook and how things have evolved over the last 50 odd years or so. Of course, firstly, when I was thinking about this morning, I didn't think that people had actually mainframe background, but I was wrong. There are people who were here that actually had mainframe background too. So obviously, you will probably recall that the mainframe days, we were talking about products, and digitization was purely just within the organization. And that evolved into what we knew as client-server computing, with the distributed of desktops. Again, still apps. You have a client and you have a server, still within organizations, a limited exposure outside of the organization. The digitization continued, and then came in early 90s, the World Wide Web. That distributed the apps all around the world, or at least started back then. What that meant was that the digitization now is heavily distributed, and things from an economic perspective, you needed more services. While somebody would argue that APIs is actually about 8 years old, probably when the first time we heard about it, but APIs become important factor when things got further distributed. And then now we are in the era where we all talk about the digital transformation, taking a step into where what customers are really expecting, not just beautiful apps, beautiful things, but a digital experience. And how do we get there? With the distribution of mobile apps, the wearables, IoT devices, things like that, I think the first keynote, I think he was talking about even algorithms helping to do certain things, even maybe there's no human behind it, right? So, and then it keeps on evolving, the metaverse, Web3, obviously I'm not going to go in there. It's an area that, of course, still continue to evolve, and a new area that everybody's trying to figure out what is actually Web3. So what does customers expect these days? They expect a really good digital experience. Obviously, a lot of us bank with one of the biggest or smaller banks in Australia. And if they were to give you a really good experience, you don't expect them to copy each other. Sometimes they do a little bit, but you do expect actually have a really good experience when you use their mobile app. And it has to be personalized as well. So you get like they're treating you as you are a really valuable customer to them. Sometimes probably not, but that's what they're trying to do, right? And it is real time. And most of the time these days, you don't go to a bank to check your balance, or you don't even actually open up your laptop. You open up your mobile phone and you actually check things, and you do your transaction. And it's real time, right? When you do a transfer, obviously 5-10 years ago in Australia, of course, it takes a couple of days for the other person to receive. Luckily, we do have this now 24/7 transfers. And it is geosensitive. I think you'll probably have noticed, like if you're using one of those apps, You go to the airport, they ask you, seems like you're going out of the country, even though you might be going to Sydney. Do you want to actually put some security on it, or do you want to actually turn it off? Those are things that we do expect now, right? Because from a security perspective, things are widely open, and hackers out there, right? I think there was a really good question in the morning about the ethics. And we as designers and developers, we need to start thinking about those things because we take it for granted, right? I myself a technologist, but when I use those digital experience, I expect the people behind it would actually take care of those things for me. And it has to be predictive as well, right? So just like I said, you go into the airport, they're trying to predict whether you're actually going to go out of the country or probably interstate. Haven't figured that one out yet, probably, I think. If we had given at that time the access to your ticketing, maybe the bank can get smarter, right? They could say, okay, you're only going interstate, so we don't need to put restrictions. But the bottom line is these days, people are not just expecting I could do something, but it's a really good digital experience. That's what we are experiencing. I took a quote out of Jeff Lawson. In his book, he said, digital experience is something you can't buy. You have to build it. Just like how Westpac or NAB, when they're creating the banking app, they have to somehow differentiate. If they don't differentiate, it just becomes another app, right? So in doing so, what he's saying is, you don't try to buy that, you actually build. Obviously, he didn't mean that if you're buying software that is equals system of record, like your HR or your finance, I'm not going to argue there is no innovation there, but the system record is not a lot you can innovate, right? So those kind of platforms, obviously, we still buy. But when you're actually trying to externalize the digital experience out of it, even if you bought SAP to manage your HR system, the app that you would create would be personalized, and it would have a better experience than the SAP system itself. That's what he meant. And in doing so, what he also said, that every company needs to be thinking and acting like a software company. Obviously, once again, some interpreted this differently to like, we need to be like Google, Amazon, or Microsoft. Obviously not, because they do have lots of engineers, they can build things internally, but the final end goal that you're delivering to the customer is what he was talking about. So I took some statistics to show, to getting into my original topic about why selecting the right digital platform is the key. Sadly, 70% of the digital transformations fail. This is Harvard Business Review that's done. So about a couple of years old, maybe about 2 years, about 1.3 trillion spent, about 900 goes to waste. Why? If you look at the box on the right-hand side, because it's so complex, trying to do a digital transformation, it's not easy, right? In this country itself, we have seen so many digital transformation projects has gone south. It's not because of the people or because of the technology. The complexity, I think, has not taken into consideration in terms of what you're trying to achieve versus what you're building internally, which I will get to in a minute. Right. So this is one very good example. I took this one off CNCF, the landscape, people who know about the Kubernetes Cloud Native Foundation that created Kubernetes and other open source projects. If you look at this, these are tools that are rightly available, somebody to go consider which ones are appropriate for you and build a platform to get your business outcome. And this landscape is growing, right? This is the complexity. And obviously, this complexity, companies like Google, Facebook, they do have engineers because that's what they do day in, day out. But if you take a look at companies like Telstra, NAB, Westpac, large enterprises, even small enterprises, do you really want to do that? Probably not, because you wanted to innovate fast, or even if you want to fail fast, you want to do that really quickly without spending that 70% of the money that HBR talked about earlier. And when we look at the application lifecycle of where the real innovation is, obviously as architects we could argue there is an innovation in the architecture too. I'm not going to dispute that. But the bulk of your real innovation goes in your development. That is where you craft things in, right? All the other things doesn't differentiate much. You can automate this, you can repetitively do that, right? But the development, testing, getting into production really fast is where your real innovation is. And I took this quote from David Gray's book. He talks about the platform, the need for a platform. And what he says is, a platform is a support structure that increases the effectiveness of a community. And this platform we do have in our communities as well. In my community, in Camberwell, there's the car park, there's Sunday, every 3 weeks or so, Sunday market. That is itself is a platform that's geared for people to come and sell things. Internet itself is a platform. Amazon is a platform where people can come and sell, Amazon themselves too. So that's what he meant. It supports the community to do things. Now the next, what I'm going to go into is, do you really want to build this platform? Because building that platform to get your real business outcome is hard. Obviously, I don't need to go through each one of them, but if you look at, these are very high-level key things that you need to think about when you build in that platform before you build your business outcome. And when you looked at it, 60% of the budget for digital transformation has gone into building those internal platforms. So you basically left with about 40% to get your real outcome, right? Some might argue, but yet again, these are industry stats, so it's probably not true for everyone, but it's an average. It's a mean, right? And it takes about 3 years, 100 plus people. And I myself, before coming into WSO2, done this for the clients. That's what they wanted. Even though you're trying to convince them this is not the business we are in. We are in the business of actually delivering something, a good outcome to our customer. Sometimes they don't get it. They want to go spend the money. So you're actually about spending the money, trying to build something which is not your real business. Your real business is actually delivering awesome digital experience, right? And as you can see, this is what some of the larger enterprises have tried to do. And they are now realizing it's commodity. You go buy that platform and build the final digital outcome. So what does enterprises really need? They need a platform to innovate, and they need to create an engineering practice that can actually apply those processes to get a really good digital experience to their customers. A digital platform. A platform that provides a collection of business technologies. Some even call it composable components. So you can put them together that you don't have to build. You're building on top of it. And what do you do with it? You are then finally creating the digital experience your customer wants, right? And we all know, being long enough in the industry, you may not get it right in the first place, but you can iterate faster now. Because you're not thinking about building that platform. You're thinking building on it. And putting it together in terms of a platform and a practice, This is why I said you can repeat faster. If you had a digital platform, you build the experience by way of applications, and you're giving a really good experience to your customers. And you can get faster feedback. You can iterate it. You can iterate it multiple times, because now you're not thinking about the bottom platform. Obviously, you don't want a completely opinionated platform. You do need some power to do it, but you don't want to go build it. Because, like I said, you'll probably spend at least close to 60% of your money doing it. Putting it at a 50,000 feet view, if you were to do or build a platform like this, obviously nowadays you're thinking about cloud-native infrastructure, which cloud you would build, or could you actually extend that to your enterprise as well? With the likes of technologies like Kubernetes and so on and so forth, you can actually have a nice hybrid platform as well. So you would, in the foundation services, you would have a marketplace where you can go consume things that your internal team has already developed, right? You have the development and your operations and governance, right? We hate governance, but we do need governance, right? So you can't ignore it. In the middle, in the digital core components, you do have APIs. You do need APIs. Obviously, you should talk about that, right? We are in API days. And you do have services that are possibly running and doing something, possibly exposed as an API, or maybe do something, write something into a database where exposed externally as an API. And you have integrations as well. You heard Sanjeev and Sol, when they were talking about it, these are now distributed integrations. And it can be in your program, in your business logic, and again, can be exposed as an API as well. And identities. You do need to manage identities, because it's no longer just within the organization, but also outside to C or B, right? Or maybe A, like the first keynote. They was talking about the agents, right? Algorithmic agents. And at the digital core layer, obviously, you then expose these as APIs, again, services, integration, and identities. And at the top, where you deliver the awesome digital experience, it could be via web. So you can access through any device that has web access. It could be like mobile, native mobile applications, or it could be an IoT device. You're getting closer to coming home. Probably they know what time you're coming in, initiate something. And then you could also expose completely API as products. Stripe was one very good example. Their business entirely runs on API, right? They don't have apps, right? Use the APIs to do all the payment transactions. And really, really valuable example there. So what did we do at WSO2? We put together our experience that we had done over the last close to 15 or 17 years actually now, and what we had done for our clients and what we have learned from our clients to build that digital platform for you, so you don't have to think about building the platform, which we call Choreo. I'll take you really quickly through Choreo. I know I'm probably between you and the lunch, so I don't want to bore you too much with my slides. Really high-level architecture. At the top, the gray boxes are about your strategy, your architecture, how you define them. Some of these we are doing with partners. Some you may already have it. So that's what I said, that it's not a highly opinionated platform. A little bit opinionated, but you can bring things that you already have. And then you start in Choreo, you define as projects. You start from code, right? So all your GitOps, your source still is your IP, is with you. There is no lock-in within the platform. Right? And then we do the build, test, run. If you happen to still have your own CI/CD, you can plug that in as well. Again, we do provide the batteries, but if you want to replace that, you could do so. Then you create your APIs, expose them into developer portal or into the marketplace. Marketplaces are becoming really important even internally, right? Some of us who work together here probably know when we work for large organizations, team A doesn't know that team B already has an API, because there is no way for them to discover that. So the marketplace, internal marketplace is also becoming a very important thing for organizations. And then you might then expose them as externally, or you might still use internally. And you can't, of course, get away with legacy, right? To me, legacy it could be even what we built last year, could be legacy this year, right? And then you can obviously do development, apps, and so on and so forth. And the platform itself is fully managed, provide observability and business insights, artificial intelligence, which I will go in a minute, and it's secure by default. Why I said secure by default is anything you build on Choreo, if you build an API, you cannot expose externally with no security. Of course, you can go turn it off, but by default, it's turned on. So even your developer don't think about too much about API securities, it won't get externalized easily. So these are some of the things that, whether you use Choreo or another similar digital platform, to need to start thinking about how that is making my developer life easier so I can get my product out really quickly. A 10-second preview of what it would look like. So you can create APIs. You can bring existing APIs that you may have built. You can build services, microservices, or internal services, and then fully integrated with our other sister product, the identities, the Asgardio. A little bit about what Sanjeev and Sol talked about earlier, the Ballerina. Ballerina is a first-class citizen in Choreo platform. And the beauty of Ballerina is that you can do it graphically as well as through your textual coding. And they both always stay in sync. You manage your code with Git repos, so your version control, so on and so forth. So they both stay in sync. The AI-assisted development, this is one of the things I wished I had when I was doing large integration projects. At the development time, you get to see how your API is going to perform. So you're getting the feedback immediately, not until you do your stress testing or things like that. I understand I'm running out of time a bit, so I'll scan through quickly. Built-in marketplace, so you can expose internally as well as externally. Pre-built stuff that you can use. And then finally, what does it deliver? It delivers a digital experience with speed, simplicity, and security and governance built in. And thank you so much. Sorry I had to rush in the last moments.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Fantastic. I think we probably will jump Q&A. We're running a little bit behind schedule, but that's fine. Thank you very much once again.